So we start this week not with an email, but with an announcement.
A celebration.
What are we announcing?
You know what we're announcing, James.
I know, but I'm playing the character of the audience who doesn't know what we're announcing.
Well, the character of the audience who doesn't know what we're announcing.
Thank you.
This week's episode of SCI GUYS is brought to you by New Scientist.
We got our first sponsor!
Woo!
We're
Yeah,
a
we
real
did.
podcast now.
We made it.
Oh, it feels official. It is official.
It is. It's very
It's
official.
literally official.
It's pretty crazy as well that like we're sponsored by, not like by some random thing, we're sponsored by New Scientist, which is like
The thing
exactly
our podcast
what
is
we
about.
do.
Yeah.
This
Like,
is what we do.
scientific, like distributing scientific information and popularizing science.
Yeah.
I was getting these. I was wanting to get these already.
I know. I've been reading New
guys are
Scientist
great.
anyway.
Shall we start the episode?
Start the episode.
Yes.
Hello and welcome to the SCI GUYS, the show where we talk about the crazy, weird, and wonderful stories from the science world. I'm Corey, and as always, I'm joined by my co-hosts, Jamp and Luke Cuthbert.
Hello.
This week, we'll be covering soy boys.
So, no.
That's me.
I hate that term so much.
That
funny,
is you. So Veganuary is almost over, and as a bit of a send-off, or maybe even encouragement to continue, we're covering veganism and what it means for you and the rest of the planet. Specifically, we'll be getting stuck into a small study by the lovely people at New Scientist. But
They did a really good issue on
yeah, they did actually really
veganism.
good. So before we get stuck into their little study, first, what is veganism?
A really annoying thing that these soy boys like to do. And they like to shove their opinions down our throat. you
We
know?
should disclose that we are all
vegan.
we are all
All,
vegan
all three of
eaters.
us. All three of us.
Unfortunately,
Every single one of us.
this is the preachy episode, guys. That's what we're doing.
Sorry.
So I would say veganism is deliberately getting rid of anything that is animal derivative.
That's the exact opposite of what veganism is.
Oh.
Getting rid of animals. All right, you tell us what veganism then, Corey. I'm sure
I
you have a
would say-
definition. I'm just trying to help. Go on.
I'd say veganism is like a philosophy where you're trying to reduce as much suffering in the world as you possibly can.
Yeah,
in your ability.
It's more broad than just like if you were to call yourself like the truest vegan, which is like not an actual attainable thing, but something to aim towards, which is where you basically want to eliminate as much suffering for animals out of your life. And that includes consumption, that includes using products, that includes funding companies, that includes having investments in banks that hurt animals, like at its most extreme.
I think that's an interesting point. I think veganism is it's a much bigger thing than people give it credence for. Some people see it as just a diet. Some people see it as a bit of a lifestyle choice.
Yeah.
Some people see it as a philosophy. But realistically, it can be any one of those things. But fundamentally, I think the truest of true veganism is reducing suffering for all living things, apart from plants.
Yeah.
Get
We
rid
don't
of
seem to care
plants.
about plants. There's a great quote, I can't remember who it's from, but somebody, I think it was Alan Watts, was talking to somebody else, and he said, you know that plants can feel things too. Plants react to like being cut down. And he said, yes, but they don't scream.
As soon as they prove that plants feel pain, as soon as they properly prove it, I'm getting a bacon sandwich. That's what's happening. Veganism is out the window.
If
No.
we can't reduce suffering for everything, then let's reduce suffering for nothing.
No, that is the opposite. I feel like one thing about veganism is that some people see it as being restrictive or difficult for people to do, but the fact is you don't need to do it 100% all the time. In fact, that's what this article was talking about a lot, that you don't need to be 100% the strictest of strict vegans all the time. You can dip in and out, you can have less meat, and it all makes an impact, and it's all better for the planet. So you don't need to see veganism as a strict,
An
you are or
either
you
or.
aren't.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm going to try.
It's a target to aim towards in whatever amount you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically voting with your dollar. And if you vote with your dollar less, then obviously that's going to have an impact in some way.
I genuinely think you could eat meat. There are situations where you could be someone that eats meat but still calls himself a vegan.
See, this is what Josh always used to say to me on our last
Yeah.
podcast, Educating Josh. He used to say, you can eat meat and still call yourself a vegan. And I was like,
Can you?
I understand what he means and I understand what you mean. I think that you can maybe like like there's some level of things you can do. So, for example, the most perfect vegan in the world wouldn't drive a car, for example. Maybe, because it's sort of the wider philosophy is about reducing suffering to the planet from humans' existence. And I still own a car and I want to get rid of it, but I haven't yet, but I still call myself a vegan. I do think that eating actual flesh, which is like, that's the vegetarian step.
Yeah.
I think that's like one step maybe, but I wouldn't want to exclude anyone. So sure.
I don't want you to lump me in with Josh because I love Josh. I love Josh, but I do not have the same view on this as him. When I say you can eat meat and be a vegan, some people genuinely cannot have a vegan diet.
Sure.
Yeah.
For medical reasons, they're not able to. So you could still conceivably eat meat out of necessity and be a vegan, because veganism isn't about getting rid of every single thing and making your life miserable. It's about getting rid of everything that you can. And if you can't get rid of meat, but you can stop wearing leather and wool, then go ahead.
Sure.
That you can still call yourself vegan.
Yeah, that's an important thing to definitely like lay down, is that if you do need to eat meat or something for necessity, it's like no one can morally blame you for that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, I mean, for instance, if I was trapped on a desert island, I would absolutely be killing and eating things, because if, once the non-vegan options had dwindled, if they weren't able to support me, then of course I'd have to switch.
I'm really hungry, and the only thing that's near me that I can eat is an animal.
Yeah. Although realistically, if an animal is able to support its biomass, then you can do it as well.
True.
But so generally, veganism is the idea of not consuming any product or using any product that is from an animal, derived from an animal, or is literally the dead body of an animal. That's the definition that we're going to be using today. Someone that doesn't partake in any animal product. But bear in mind that it's quite broad. Like, we all call ourselves vegan, but I'm certain that we all have honey, which technically isn't vegan. Do you not have honey?
I have honey.
I used to.
Very occasionally, yeah.
I'll have honey.
I used to, but I got a bit stricter with that.
Yeah.
I don't think it harms bees. So,
I think it probably does.
It does. Yeah. They do kill the bees.
Yeah, but bees are dying out, so beekeepers tend to.
Beekeeping is good.
Yeah, it's definitely the one where
good.
the reason I would occasionally have it is because it's the one where I feel I know the least. And so I don't actually know genuinely whether it's good or bad that the beekeeping industry exists. And I can see that there are very possible benefits to the deliberate breeding of bees. Possibly. Now, I also don't know. And so that's why I've just kind of skirted around it and just not...
I don't proactively have honey.
Same.
I'll have honey.
I didn't like honey to begin with, to be honest.
Well, then that's not fair. That doesn't count. I got rid of honey because I don't like it. And also it's really bad for bees.
Not that I didn't like it. I just didn't seek it out.
No, fair enough. I mean, I'd have eggs as well. If they were... So my granddad's got a farm. If his chickens had eggs, I might have those.
Oh,
I don't know.
absolutely. I saw this. I went to Scotland recently with my mum, and I went to this... We went past this amazing farm where it was literally like...
Was it my granddad's?
Maybe. Does he have alpacas as well?
He has alpacas.
No. This farm had alpacas, and there was this beautiful this was like they had so much room, and there was no the chickens were in open free air.
Did you go to my granddad's farm?
Which normally, we'll see, because there's a very specific thing about this, which normally they can't have because the foxes get them, but the alpacas bond with the chickens, and then foxes don't come because the alpacas will attack the foxes if they come. And then they just had this little outhouse, this little shed thing where you go in and you just tap your credit card or put some money in, and the eggs are just there in a little box. And I just thought that was wonderful.
That's not my granddad's farm, but that's fantastic. It's very close.
Yeah,
that's wild.
That's really cool.
Oh, they just were so happy. You could just tell the chickens, they would wander up to you and they'd peck through the bars trying to get to you, and it was just so lovely.
Yeah, I mean, they've already been bred to have an egg a day, so.
Which is horrible.
It's horrible.
It's like having a period every day.
Yeah.
A full period cycle every day.
Yeah, but I don't think chickens quite get PMS,
Sure.
So I feel like we've got what vegans are. They're people that don't have animal stuff, So I'm going to quickly run over what omnivores, herbivores, and carnivores are. You guys know what that is?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, so easy enough. Omnivores eat everything. Herbivores just eat plants. And carnivores just eat meat. So it's not just based on... There's two different kind of ways to describe an omnivore, a herbivore, and a carnivore. You could describe what they are biologically. For instance, as humans, we're omnivores. Pigs are omnivores. Dogs are kind of omnivores as well, a little bit. They're more on the carnivore end, whereas things like sheep, cows, most farm animals like that are herbivores. I say farm animals, most farm mammals.
They're vegans.
Are herbivores. An interesting case is the panda, which is a herbivore.
Oh yeah. I thought so.
But it shouldn't be because it's biologically.
Oh, it's a bear.
Yes, it's a panda bear, which is biological. Yeah, bears generally eat fish, honey, fruits. But they definitely need meat. A lot of bears are carnivorous. Panda bears biologically are carnivorous.
Purely carnivorous.
Yes.
Right.
Effectively.
But then they live a purely herbivore life.
Yes.
So they're ethical vegans.
No.
They've made a conscious choice to reduce animal suffering.
Yeah, it's actually ridiculous. In fact, this is one of the reasons that pandas irritate me to no end, because they're going extinct, partly because we're destroying their habitat, but I fully believe they do it anyway because one, they're carnivores that eat that are vegetarians.
Yeah.
It's like when you have someone that has a dog and decides to make the dog vegan, except the panda is doing it to itself. Second, they can't make other baby pandas very well. They're very bad at it. They are the worst.
True.
That's why when a panda has a baby, you go to Edinburgh Zoo and you're like, wow, isn't it amazing that we've got one of these? Because pandas are bad at doing it. Pandas should be going extinct themselves anyway.
Right. So why are we spending so much money saving them?
I don't.
They don't want to be saved.
Because they're cute, Look at most of the animals that are going extinct that you know about are cute animals or pretty animals or something along those lines.
Really ugly.
Yeah.
So it's really nothing to do with, saving the world and the ecosystem.
No, it's just what we think is cute.
Just to save the cute animals, obviously.
You think if like an ugly jellyfish was going extinct, we'd be like, oh, let's save it. Let's
maybe if it had some really important process in the food cycle.
I mean, if we could use it.
Oh, no.
No! Just as I was starting to like humans again.
Some tasty jellyfish on that plate.
Yeah, so that's what omnivores, herbivores, and carnivores are. It's basically, generally, a biological term for what your body is built to eat. Like I said, we're omnivores, but we can survive on a herbivorous diet because that's what we'd have to do sometimes. Obviously, when we were evolving, if you were a hunter-gatherer, you're not always going to get meat, are you?
It's unreliable.
Yeah, so vegetables will pretty much always be there because plants can't run.
That's true.
See, this is what
quite
I
efficient
think
at catching plants.
when we talk about when science eventually proves that plants can feel pain. I think that's probably true, but plants have had a long time to evolve legs if they wanted to.
And also, even if they do feel pain, they are made to. So some plants we could still eat. So there's a lot of things we could still eat. A lot of fruits. So peppers, apples, basically most berries that are sweet and delicious, we could still have because. So if you don't know this, what fruit is effectively a baby dispersal unit for plants.
Yeah.
So all the fruits we eat generally, they're made to be eaten by animals and then excreted elsewhere,
Pooped out.
which spreads the seed literally of the plant farther away. And also gives it some lovely fertilizer.
Yeah, and some nutritious excrement.
Wow.
And
so the seed was never meant to use the fruit as its fertilizer. It was meant to use the poop.
So I think what you're asking is the food for the seed, it isn't on the outside. It's inside the seed coat.
Right.
The fruit is just the casing for the seed. And the tasty ones are literally made to be eaten by animals.
Wow.
So that they can, because plants don't walk. So
Yeah, true.
they don't want to have all their babies being, I say babies, they're plants. They don't want to have all their offspring growing in a circle around them.
Like a really big family.
Yeah, exactly. So it's basically if you're an apple, you can have your little apple tree, your little baby apple tree, grow as far away as an animal can walk before
brilliant.
needing to go. Yeah, nature's amazing.
That's nice.
This episode is brought to you by New Scientist.
Wow.
Yes, it
our
is.
First sponsor.
If you go to a link in the description, you can get your very own copy of New Scientist and another 9 for only £10. So that's 10 copies for £10.
That's
Another
10 in
copy and
total.
then another 9.
And then another 9 copies
You mean
on top
10
of that.
for 10?
That's 10. A little bit of math. A little bit of math. So that's 10 copies for £10 if you follow the link in the description below.
The significance of this is that this episode of SCI Guys is based on the Going Vegan issue of New Scientist. Corey has got all his research from this place, haven't you?
You gosh darn right.
I am, aren't I? We think you'll absolutely love New Scientist. Like, Corey loves New Scientist.
I love New Scientists. They don't need to pay me to do this. I'll do it
I've
for
been
free.
reading Scientists forever, literally.
Don't tell them that, Corey.
I won't do it for free.
But we think you'll absolutely love it, especially if you just are going to university this year, or you love science, or you love technology, or even if you just love learning. We assume you love learning as you're listening to this podcast. We think you'll love New Scientist.
It made me love learning again.
This podcast or New Scientist?
New Scientist, not this podcast.
So go to the link in the description and get your copies right now. So why don't we move back onto veganism?
That's the
That'd be
episode.
good. That is the whole episode, yeah.
So obviously there are some health concerns that people have with veganism because we're so geared into eating meat in our diets that
It's so essential.
well, it's not even that essential. We started eating a lot more meat than we used to.
But we have built our entire society around a constant flow of meat.
Yeah.
And we have things like fortified flour, but they're only fortified in things that we didn't otherwise get. So they're not fortified in stuff that's maybe rare if you don't have a meat diet.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is, we only started eating a lot of meat in the past, I think 50, 60 years.
Yeah, it's really recent, wasn't it?
Yeah, it used to be an occasional thing, a treat, and it was expensive. And now some people have meat every day.
Every meal, every day.
Yeah, so, you know,
3
there's-
times a day.
There's things that
Mad.
they're like, if there's no meat in it, then it's not a meal.
Yeah, right?
But like margarita pizza, a
I'm
bowl of
current-
cereal,
Yeah.
come on, man. There's like mac and cheese. There's so many
Yeah.
meals that don't.
Yeah, you eat
Yeah.
vegan food all the time.
And you just don't know.
just don't know.
Do you eat vegetables? Like, I'm having this problem. I'm planning my wedding at the moment, and we're having fully vegan. Everything's vegan. And like, I'm so like, there's going to be people complaining. And I'll
Let
be
me
like,
cater for you.
it's
They
my
won't
wedding.
know. But yeah, no, fair enough. It's your wedding. You can do what you want. And also,
yeah, I've got to spend a lot of money on this thing. I'm
you'll
not
like
buying
it.
flesh for it.
It's for me. It's not for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the thing. I mean, I cook a lot, you know, and
Cool, you want to cater my wedding?
please.
You know he will, Luke.
I will.
And he'll
And
do a
also,
good
I'll
job
pull
of
out all of my hair cooking for that many people.
And your chef, Bald Corey, is here.
I wasn't bald before I
Who's the
started.
bald guy? I clocked
Yeah,
on with a full head of hair.
I named you Bald Corey preemptively, knowing you'd go bald.
He's a
You
completely
just see
new
tongues
person.
coming out. Someone's got a whole like a bowl of soup with just a hole to the
Half the hair in there.
Oh, sorry.
Season this with a bit of hair.
I gave it willingly.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but no, I cook all the time, and honestly, cooking vegan is more fun.
You said that like
Really
cooking
fun.
vegan, like you'd say cooking chicken.
Yeah,
Cooking
vegan.
pork.
vegan is my favorite meat. No, but cooking vegan food is way more fun because it's, in some cases, it's just a little bit more exciting because some people will be like, okay,
fully agree with that.
I'll just throw a slab of meat on there and that's a meal. Whereas I'm
Yeah.
like,
Cool, gonna cook my steak for tonight.
yeah.
That's done.
Whereas I've got like hundreds of vegetables
Yeah.
to choose from with all these
Like,
different
what
ways of cooking them.
combinations are we gonna do today?
Exactly. And should I use a meat
seasonings?
substitute? Should I use tofu? What should I
Yeah.
use? It's just
100%.
way more exciting. And also,
I think it opens your eyes to more options that you didn't necessarily consider before.
Yeah.
Not that those options weren't there, but now that you're forced to look for other options, you're like, wow, there's
Yeah.
actually so
You realize
much.
that
You become way less fussy.
when you
Yeah.
realize how blinded you were,
Yeah.
I feel like I was really blinded when I was eating meat because I constantly thought, okay,
I need to have some
what
meat.
what is the meat I'm going to have, and then what is the meal?
Yeah.
Whereas now I think, well, what cuisine do I want, and then
Yeah.
I'll build from that.
Yeah. I used to
What
have
do I want to taste?
My mum used to tease me because for like most of my childhood, I would go to my childminder, Claire, and she would make anything, and I'd go, I don't like it, Claire.
I was the opposite.
Really, I was also a fussy eater.
I would eat anything, like anything you put in front of me.
Yeah.
Give me
Like a
plastic, I'll eat
slug.
it. Yeah. But that's the thing. I think with veganism, if you're struggling with it, it's a case of a change of mindset. You know, you don't want to think, oh, I'm missing meat. Switch your brain into thinking, well, meat isn't an option anymore at all. It's just here are all these things that I can have.
Yeah.
And you don't need to think of. I think if you're starting off, starting off with meat substitutes might be good to wean you off, but it's not going to help you change your mindset because you're still going to be thinking, what meat substitute do I need for this meal?
Yeah, that's what I really love about this new wave of like Greg's pulling out their vegan sausage rolls and their steak bakes and KFC doing their burgers, is that even though it's not good food for you, it's not healthy, it is good for people who are like on the fence about maybe going vegan or vegetarian, and it can help them realize, oh, like there are plenty of options out there for me now, and it can help them transition into being like, here's like food I used to love, I can still have it, and now they have to change their thought pattern because they've
absolutely.
the way they think about food.
Yeah, you don't need to think about veganism as being this restrictive thing. If anything, it's not restrictive at all. It's quite
freeing.
It's quite freeing. There's just this one thing that you choose not to have. Yeah. So the health concerns of being vegan, is what I was going to mention.
Sure.
So obviously, not eating meat. Meat's a great source of protein. It can be difficult to get that protein if you're vegan, but ultimately, the main issue is just a few amino acids that you might not get. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. Proteins are the building blocks of you.
Yes.
Just you.
Just me.
Just you. Just Luke.
Everyone else is made out of carbohydrates.
Yeah, so you can still get all of the nutrition you need from a vegan diet. So it's no less healthy than a meat-based diet. It's just a shift to what foods you eat and what quantities you eat them in.
See, now when companies like Quorn, for example, are putting out a product, one of the things that holds up, as far as I can tell from what I've read, the development of that product is that the meat substitute, if you're going to create a world where people are vegan, right, where like a significant portion of the population are vegan, you need to be able to have it so that they can use a meat substitute in the same way they'd use meat. It's not just tasting the same. You also get the same, what's called, as you know, complete proteins, which is a protein that has every single amino acid in it. So something like corn, something like tofu, for example, are complete proteins. And as Corey is about to go into, some proteins, a few of them, are less prevalent in a average vegan diet, purely because all meat are complete proteins.
Yeah.
And so, or I think all meats are complete proteins.
Yeah,
so it's
basically
very easy to get all proteins if you're a meat eater.
Basically, the way it works is because you're eating an animal that already needs all of those proteins. They've done the hard work for you.
They've done the hard work for you.
They
just
found
eat the
them. They've got
animal.
them together.
Yeah.
You're just eating that guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, it's tofu and meats. They're complete. But if you were to stick to some, legumes, rice, other grains, you wouldn't be getting everything.
Rice and beans. If you mix rice and beans, you get every protein.
Yeah, if you mix. My point is, if you so you could
If you
conceivably
stick to one, you couldn't get everything.
Yeah, you could conceivably eat beef and get all of the proteins that you need, whereas you couldn't, in the same sense, eat one kind of bean. And get all of it.
You kind of have to get
This
smart
is
about.
What's so brilliant about it is it forces you into trying stuff. And it
Yeah,
forces you
exactly.
into variety.
It's fantastic.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, I made jackfruit nachos the other night. Haven't cooked with jackfruit before, but it was fantastic. The night before,
really good.
mushroom sausages. You can have anything. I've got
Yesterday-
aubergine for tonight.
Yesterday,
Can't wait.
I made the best burger I've ever had in my life. It was completely vegan. Made it in my own kitchen from scratch. It was so good. It was the burger was made from beetroot and soy. Really, really good.
Amazing. So yeah, I mean, look, being vegan can be unhealthy if you don't look into what you need to eat. But ultimately, it's no less healthy than any other kind of diet you'd have. It's just that people aren't taught how to eat vegan in school.
Yeah.
Whereas you're taught how to have a diet that has meat in it.
It's definitely not as healthy. It's definitely less easy to begin with. In the current world we live in, it's definitely less easy. And that's why things like fake meats coming in and they're taking the responsibility of making it behave in the same way as meat. Eventually we'll get into a world where literally anyone can just become vegan, and as long as they eat what they'd normally eat in substitute form, they'll get everything. But it's going to take a while for us to get there.
I think this was mentioned in the New Scientist feature that I was reading, that apparently people are working on substitute meats that are actually made from actual animal protein. So you could grow, say, a leg of lamb in a lab. It's an exaggeration, but you could grow that same meat in a lab.
The same type of flesh.
Yeah, it would be the same type of flesh. It would have the same proteins. It would be functionally the same. You just don't need to kill an animal for it.
It would be
Yeah.
technically vegan, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
'cause an animal hasn't had
Weird.
to suffer.
Yeah, I mean, you could take a scraping from an animal and then
Sure.
You know.
Without
Yeah.
suffering. Yeah.
yeah, which is, I mean, and ultimately, even if you had to kill one of each animal
For the whole of humanity.
for the whole of humanity,
For
I
the
think.
rest of time.
I mean,
because even like, for example, like some of the new big vegan burgers that are coming out are tested on rats because I think it's a requirement by the FDA in America that if you're going to sell something as food, it has to be tested on rats. And so like there's all these like, so technically that's not vegan. Burger King's new vegan burger is cooked on the same fryer in the same fat as the beef.
it's
And
to give
so
it that flame grilled
like-
taste, Luke.
Yeah,
Or
technically
like-
that's not vegan. And so there's a bunch of these stupid
Your
things
fruits
where
and
like,
veggies were grown with pesticides, which kill insects.
Exactly.
Yeah, you
yes.
can't be 100% vegan or you would
Exactly.
probably not be alive. Yeah, like we said, it's just about being as close as you can to whatever standard you want to set.
yeah.
Yeah. There's also the issue of, soy boys and there being estrogen in soy, which obviously feminizes men.
See, I read about this that it's actually complete rubbish.
Isn't it the opposite? There's more estrogen in
What?
dairy milk than
What?
in soy
Yeah,
milk.
no, that's absolutely true. Of course it's true. What? Are you kidding me?
It's literally coming from a cow's udder. It would have estrogen in it.
Do they understand that cows are cows are pumped full of
Cows that
hormones,
provide milk.
and also
Yeah.
dairy cows have just had a kid, had a
Yeah.
baby.
The pump's full of estrogen.
They're gonna have
They're
estrogen
producing
in
it by
them.
the gallons.
They're like, that's as lady as you get
Yeah.
having a.
But even isolated from that, I've read that like so there's this big scare around like soy milk's gonna give you man boobs
for men to grow breast tissue, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And apparently, when you actually read into it, the idea that soy milk or tofu could ever have enough estrogen in it to trigger that response is not true.
So how it works is that this isn't estrogen it's not human estrogen. The reason they're called estrogens, I think they're phytoestrogens. The reason it's called that is because it's structurally similar to estrogen,
Right.
the human female hormone. It doesn't act in the same way. In fact, the studies that I've read, they can't actually replicate anything that people have said where it has a noticeable effect. In fact,
We're trying to give someone man boobs and we can't.
it's and this is not this one isn't a massive study. This isn't even a scientific study about to talk about. But if you go on YouTube and see H Bomber guy,
He's
yeah.
done a really good video on
he
soy.
did a fantastic video on this wherein he has this all soy diet for I think a month, a couple of weeks, some amount of
Yeah.
time, and I think he measures his testosterone levels, or he does that sort of thing, and they don't change obviously
At all.
because estrogen wouldn't affect it to that level.
Yeah.
And ultimately, if there was like a lot of estrogen in soy products, do you not think that trans women would be eating only soy? Like, come on, they're not doing that. so
Chugging soy milk down.
I think we're safe, guys. It's fine.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. But, it's not just all about health and growing breasts as a man. Veganism is apparently good for the environment, depending on who you speak to.
What?
Because it could also be terrible for the environment.
Really?
Apparently. Well, yeah. So there's different ways of measuring it, obviously. So the one way is looking at the carbon dioxide output. And obviously that's much lower because
There's one less layer of the food chain.
in one
Yeah.
step, you're growing a lot of food to feed an animal, which you then feed to someone else. And in another one, you're growing a lot of food to feed a person.
Straight away.
Isn't it-
You're cutting out the
It's
middle.
like 1 to 10, isn't
Yeah,
it?
isn't that
Every
something-
time, yeah.
It's something ridiculous. Like 90% of the crops we grow go to the animals that we then farm
Yeah.
and eat the meat of.
If you can't quite conceptualize this, think about it in the sense that, when you feed something to an animal, what does it use that energy for? Okay? It uses it to grow and repair itself, and it uses it to move around, and it uses it to
Make
reproduce. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So respiration as well.
Yeah.
Which is making warmth and breathing. So the only one that we care about is growth and repair because that's the one that actually puts all that energy into the animal's body, which is what we're going to eat. But the fact that it's
Yeah.
got all those other avenues to put
Yeah.
energy into, moving around, making babies,
Yeah.
you don't want to do that. That's such a
Yeah.
waste of energy. Whereas if you just had the plants,
You could just
eat all of them. That's fine. All of the
Yeah.
energy is there. So you are wasting so much just by feeding it to animals.
Yeah. From a purely energy point of view, like a calorific point of view, it is like we are we have like a generator outside our house that wastes 90% of the energy, that regenerates 10% of the energy we put into it, and then we use that to power our house.
Yeah.
That would be just so silly if we did that.
We've got a fantastic generator that's powering a terrible generator to power our house.
So true.
We need to use the really good generator to start up this terrible one.
I've got an idea. Let's just stop using the bad generator.
So do you think at any point we're going to evolve to go one step further than veganism and remove another metabolic process and just directly photosynthesize? Because that'd be great.
That'd be really useful, wouldn't it?
We'd have to have chloroplasts for that, I think.
Especially with global warming coming in that. Yeah.
Could we like create like artificial humans that have chloroplasts?
I think we've tried to do that.
Cool.
Of course we have.
I mean, the issue is that having the... I know that's a silly question, but the issue is having the actual, let's call it infrastructure, to do that, you know? So, sure, you could give humans the cells or the parts of cells that photosynthesize, but then they don't have the structures to take that take those carbohydrates that are produced and put them elsewhere where they can be broken down and used.
Yeah.
You know? So conceivably, yes, but also
No.
a bit more of a difficult problem than it seems on the face of it.
Yes, but also no.
Yeah, but plant-based diets are still damaging to the environment in some cases. Obviously, so almond milk. Don't drink almond milk, by the way.
Oh god,
maybe.
I stopped drinking almond milk when I read too much into it.
Yeah, so
I stick to soy or oat milk now.
yeah, oat's the
much
cheapest. You can make your own oat
Yeah.
It
milk.
actually says on the front of this New Scientist issue, aren't almonds bad too?
Yeah, I've read that.
And what does it say? What does it tell you?
Almonds are kind of bad. Avoid almonds if you can because
Yeah.
they require so much water.
Yeah.
California is, I mean, it's awful for it. They put so much of their water into almonds, and it's just such a waste.
Yeah.
It's what fun in all those Disney movies, though.
Well, yeah, that's true. But to be fair, look, that's the one thing that people often point to. So yeah, there are some vegan foods that contribute more to, say, climate change or that have more of an impact on the environment than other ones. So this man, Joseph Poor, at the University of Oxford, and Thomas Nemec at the Agroscope Research Center in Zurich, Switzerland. They looked at a data set covering 119 countries, and including products that made up 90% of all human calorie intake. And what they found was that it could take more water to grow nuts or peas than to produce the equivalent weight of beef. And the almonds require, the most, not the most, but a large amount. And there's also pesticides and fertilizers that they have to use as well. And palm oil, they've cleared tons of forests to produce that. But even then, the lowest impacting animal products like poultry and eggs still have more of an impact overall, tend to be overall more damaging than the substitute vegetables and plant-based foods. That's not to say that the worst plant-based foods are better, but overall plant-based diets are better. There are slightly worse ones, but they're still overall a better option because you can't just pick the worst of one and the best of another and say, well, that means that this one is probably better.
You can if you want to defend your point of view, Corey.
That would be lying, Luke. So Joseph Poor says, even if we could reduce all animal protein products to their lowest impact, it would still be better for the environment to stop eating meat as a protein source. And he's a scientist.
And probably a meat eater as well.
I mean, I don't know, maybe.
I mean, just by averages. He might be.
That's
He's
true.
90% meat eater.
So this study revealed actually that the environmental impact of all foods is higher than we thought, because most studies tend to cover the carbon dioxide into the atmosphere rather than the full scope. But meat and dairy animal products were the worst ones still.
Yeah.
I mean, they contribute 60% of agriculture's greenhouse gas.
Oh my God.
And only provide 18% of the calories.
Whoa.
Yeah, not efficient at all.
What?
That's mad. Wait,
Yeah.
so then if you like increase that up to like if it were 100% of the greenhouse gas, then that would be something like 20 like that would be like it producing 22% of the food for 100% of the greenhouse gas. Like if you stretched them up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not much. Less than a quarter for all of it.
Wow.
Yeah, so a 2016 analysis of the food diaries of 153 Italian adults had a similar conclusion. They found out that apparently vegans have approximately about a third less of a carbon footprint than meat eaters, which means that between the three of us, we have the same dietary carbon footprint as 2 meat eaters.
Oh,
Wow.
nice. Yeah.
Wow.
We're doing
Which
our
is
very best.
3 for 2.
Yeah.
Bargain.
One of us is free. That's so cool.
One of us is off of the hook.
Wow. One of us is part of like a bargain offer.
So let's get into the New Scientist feature.
Okay.
It was honestly a great read. I really enjoyed.
This
really
made me
enjoyed
so
reading it.
happy to see.
Yeah, it's
The
fantastic.
idea of
Yeah.
scientist and vegan being in the same place
Yeah.
is like the most exciting thing.
When I saw
Really?
I saw it on the shelf at Sainsbury's, and it just made me so happy.
But yeah, the article is fantastic. So they basically did, New Scientist did a little experiment. And I just want to say again, a big thanks to New Scientist, in particular to Alison George and Helen Thompson, who put this feature together.
Good job.
So yeah,
guys.
it was a small study with 19 people. So it's not, something that's massive with sweeping generalizations that you can really take a lot from. But it is an interesting look into, the more personal experience of, starting veganism.
Yeah.
So as I said, the study was with 19 people. They were all New Scientist staff. They teamed up with the researchers from LEAP, which is the Livestock, Environment and People program at Oxford University, which is quite nice. So like I said, it's really small. No massive conclusions can be drawn from it, but it's very interesting. Nice little personal level look at veganism. And also, they've got a lot of information from literature. And it's not overwhelming.
Yeah.
If you want to go and read this yourself, you probably can. It's not overwhelming. It's just really good. It's a really nice read. Anyway, as I said, 19 people, 13 meat eaters, 3 vegetarians, and 3 pescatarians. Pescatarians being people that only have fish.
Fish is
And also vegetables.
yeah, just fish.
Exclusively fish.
Vegetarians, but they also have fish. I
They
think
are bears.
They are.
They
Or
step in the river and
dolphins.
snap.
I love watching bears try and catch salmon, don't you? Oh, they're so bad at it, but they're so good. So they track their food intake using MyFitnessPal.
Yes, I've used that app before.
I
good
also
app.
use that app.
I've used that.
Yeah, when I go to the gym.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you go to the
Corey
gym?
works out. Did you
Yeah,
know?
Corey work out?
Corey does work out.
Yeah, so I was talking to my personal trainer about this the other day, actually.
That's how I knew he worked out. Because Corey, not only does Corey work out, Corey has a personal trainer to work out with.
Yeah, so they, as I said, they use MyFitnessPal to track their food intake. So they ate their normal diets for a week, and then they switched to a vegan diet. And the LEAP people did their analysis for them. So they took all of their diets, calculated the environmental impact and the nutritional impact. So usually how this works is that researchers will take a hypothetical diet. They'll make a list of foods and make up a nice hypothetical diet. And then they'll figure out the greenhouse gases produced from whatever diet they've decided. So if you don't know, which I don't know how you've managed to miss it, but a greenhouse gas is a gas that traps heat in the atmosphere. So it makes the planet warmer. It's what's contributing to climate change and global warming. We don't like greenhouse gases. They're not very good
not
for
very
us.
good for us, no.
No, they're bad.
Well, they're only bad when they get too many of them. Like, they're actually quite good most of the time.
Yeah,
I mean,
Otherwise, all the
anything
heat
is
would
bad, but
escape.
too many.
The Earth
That's
has
the
a
point of too
natural-
many.
Doesn't the Earth have a natural
Not
greenhouse
puppies.
gas cycle?
But if there's too many puppies,
You can't have... That's a logical implausibility.
No such thing.
too many is always bad.
No.
You know what? I know that you know I'm right, so let's just move on. Obviously, there's more than one greenhouse gas. I say obviously, you might not know this. There's more than one greenhouse gas. It's
I
not
did
just
not know that was just
the one.
Is it carbon monoxide as well?
I don't think so.
Okay.
That's the one that kills
Carbon
you.
trioxide.
Carbon monoxide kills you quite quickly. Carbon dioxide kills us all very slowly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apart from trees.
Well,
Trees like it.
Maybe
yeah, I mean,
carbon dioxide
us all
is
as
the
in
only reason we
humans.
die.
I'm sorry, I don't include trees when I say when I say us.
I include trees in all that I do, Corey.
You're just sucking up to them for when they finally start to move.
I really hope the trees didn't hear me earlier when I said trees have had ages to evolve legs if they wanted to.
Man, Treebeard is coming over here and he's gonna. There's more than one greenhouse gas. Not just carbon dioxide. There's also methane, which you may know as
Cow farts?
people
cow
farts
fart.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually cow breath as
Cow
well.
breath. They fart through their mouths.
Well, because they've got a lot of stomachs, they kind of like
Yeah.
belch up methane.
yeah.
You fart methane.
God,
I
they're
fart.
all
We all,
How
we all
did
do
you
that.
know?
Quite rude.
You've been
Tested
watching
my
me?
fart.
I've been testing.
Following me?
Damn it.
No, I simply put a balloon in your underwear. And then I snuck it out at a later date.
Was it a balloon of methane and you were falsifying results? Aha!
Oh,
I
no.
have you.
So obviously this could present a problem when you're trying to measure them, because now you've got to measure all of these different things instead of just one.
Yeah.
But scientists are smart.
Well, no, for being
Goodness
quite
for
smart.
that.
Yes, what they do is they convert all the greenhouse gases into their equivalent carbon. So, for instance, methane is about 25 times as potent in the atmosphere as a greenhouse gas in comparison to carbon dioxide.
Oh.
So, obviously, it's difficult to measure all these different gases, but scientists are smart. So, what they do is they measure just one gas. By which I mean they take all the gases and they figure out what their equivalent in carbon dioxide would be. So, for example, methane is 25 times as potent in the atmosphere as carbon dioxide.
Right.
So, if you were to do that, you would basically take, I've got 1 volume of methane, which means I've got 25 of carbon dioxide.
Oh,
Yes.
God, that's not very good.
No, it's not.
No,
it's not at all.
No, it's
A lot
not.
of farts.
Obviously, it's not as simple as this. There's other factors involved. Methane is much more short-lived than carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
But look,
They're
scientists are
estimating.
doing it. They're doing it. Let's
Yeah.
just trust them. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so in this case, you would say CO2 equivalent, which is written down as CO2 with a little E. Yeah. Read my mind.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I knew where it's going.
What were the findings?
That's just what I was about to say. Thank
wow,
you.
Yeah,
you
it
read
was.
his mind now.
Wow, look at us both.
Wow.
So this study found that the vegans actually had over 50% less
Wow.
carbon dioxide equivalent
Whoa.
than the normal diets.
Don't I feel good about myself now?
You shouldn't.
Yeah, you.
Why?
Oh, for the veganism thing, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
you know
just
what-
in general,
You
I
just-
shouldn't.
You
Thanks,
know what
sorry.
you've done.
Wow, it's almost like I'm listening to my narrator again.
Yeah, so this difference equates to driving about 85 kilometers in a petrol car.
Is
A
this
lot.
for how much? Like a week's food?
This is a week, yeah.
Wow.
So per week,
Ooh.
which is mental.
Yeah.
So that means that you can drive 85 kilometers farther.
I definitely
than a
don't
meat
drive
eater.
85 kilometers in a week, so that's good.
Yeah, but you
Me
can
too.
if you want, just
Thanks.
for funsies.
Well, I don't know.
I don't eat meat, so I can now drive.
No. I don't think so.
Is it partly due because cows produce so much methane?
Cows
That it's
produce
just
too
na-
much methane.
Too much methane that it's just naturally higher than.
Oh yeah, cows produce a ridiculous amount of methane because, as I said, it's
Yeah.
coming out of both ends with those guys.
Yeah, and it's 25 times more.
And they eat so much grass.
They eat so
Yeah.
much grass.
just so much.
So much. They've got 4 stomachs just to digest the grass because
That's
once is not
ridiculous.
enough.
They're hogging all the stomach.
Oh, mad.
Yeah. And what they did actually, there's a lot of cool stuff in here. It's probably easier to show it to you. They've got a lot of like really interesting just graphs and little explanations of how everything went down. They show you the nutrition, like the nutritional impact that they had. For instance, they had fewer calories.
Wow, hang on 1 second. I'm going to interrupt you here.
Go ahead.
They've got a graph here that says high meat diet, and it's really high in CO2 equivalent.
Yeah.
Medium meat diet, still really high in CO2 equivalent. Low meat diet, still really high in CO2 equivalent. Vegetarian diet, lower than the low meat diet. Vegan diet, even lower than the vegan diet is less than half the size of the half meat diet.
Yeah.
And roughly half the size of the medium meat
Yep.
diet.
Yeah.
And still 2/3 of the low meat diet.
So that was actually taken from a previous study.
Yeah.
And below it is compared to their study,
Ah, yes.
which is it's a really interesting.
So their study shows all participants' usual diet averages out to be slightly lower than the low meat diet, which makes sense because there's some pescatarians in there.
Yeah.
and vegetarians.
And
yeah.
their vegan diet shows to be even lower than the previous study's
It's still
standard
about
vegan
half
diet.
if you look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the remainder of this, they then go on to say about picking up veganism for a few weeks and dropping it off for a bit of time. And what they find is that occasionally, or quite, often enough, people that start, being vegan for a bit and then stop tend to carry some of those habits with them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've probably seen this. You'll find a lot of people that just drink soy milk, not because they're vegan, but just because. In this instance, there was a woman who, when she was breastfeeding, she couldn't drink dairy. She couldn't have dairy. So she switched to like coconut milk. And in this study, she's said it's so much easier now than it was before. And people will, eat less meat or try for more vegan options just from doing it for even a week in this case.
Yeah.
Which all contributes and it's all better.
That's how I fell into veganism, because I picked it up thinking, I was always in the mindset that, I could never go vegan because that's something other people do. It's not in my capabilities. And I got so frustrated with myself that letting my diet limit me like that. And so I always thought, I'll try it and I'll prove that I can do it. And then I'll, go back to my normal diet and whatever. But what I just found it so rewarding, like the just feeling more energized, and some of the effects weren't immediate, but I was like, I'm just going to keep carrying this on because it feels so much better.
Absolutely.
I also think it's a really cool test to see if you actually can make a decision that your body is not necessarily on side with, and see if you can do it. Because it's like, it's not often that like you actually challenge yourself to that level of like, can I change something so fundamental that's been ingrained in me since birth? Can I do it? Mm-hmm. And the answer is that you probably can, and it feels really great when you do it.
Yeah.
Because you've like overcome your brain and your body and whatever.
And it turns out the big scary monster wasn't that scary after all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
It was very easy.
Especially now.
Yeah.
Big scary monster is like
a really cute puppy.
KFC chicken, vegan chicken wings.
Yeah.
It's the thing. 2 years ago, before I'd even moved into this house with you guys, I was struggling to do Veganuary. I'd failed it quite a few times, and I kind of kept on doing it on and off every few weeks and be like, I don't want to do this anymore. Until August came around, I moved in here, and I just decided, okay, I'm just going to do it now. And then I did it.
And it's easy.
It's easy. It's the same as when I went vegetarian about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Someone said to me, Corey, you can't be vegetarian cold turkey. Come on, you actually can. And I said,
yes, I can.
Well, yes, I can. And that was the driving force behind me doing it.
Well, people listening, you can't be vegan. Ha ha ha! I bet you couldn't do it.
Bet you guys can't do it.
Stinky, meaty.
Bet you're not good enough.
Person. Bet you couldn't do it. Ha ha ha! Psychology.
No, I'll prove to you I can.
Yeah, don't be vegan. It's terrible.
Yeah, the worst decision I ever made. I hope you don't do it.
It doesn't just end there. There's another, page or so that is just kind of rounding up everything and talking about, how veganism works, like the future of veganism. And it's really, really interesting. But overall, I really loved reading this feature. And to be honest, I would have done anyway. I would have done this episode anyway. It was just a happy coincidence that we managed to team up with New Scientist for it.
Thanks, New Scientist.
Yeah, thank you. And if you'd like to get your copies, there is a link for it in the description of this podcast. So go ahead and get them right now. Thank you for watching. You can find the full references for this episode in the description. Subscribe for new episodes every Sunday, and why not leave us a nice wee comment? You can support us on Patreon. I'm keeping it going at patreon.com/SCI GUYS.
Just keep going. Just keep going. Or Twitter. You can comment at SCI GUYS Pod.
I'm not Corey everywhere.
I'm Jamkin everywhere.
I'm Luke Cutforth everywhere.
Bye, New Scientist.
Goodbye, New Scientist.
Go vegan.